Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the We Can Do This podcast, Kiss the Ground's weekly conversation about how we can participate in the healing of our earth and ourselves as we are one and the same. My name is Rylan Engelhart. I'll be your host, and it gives me great honor to introduce our amazing guest today, Leila Salazar-López. And we're actually just getting to meet for the first time this morning. And so I'm really, really excited to hear your story and your journey and what has you do what you do, and hear about what is currently happening in the Amazon and what Amazon Watch is currently working on. And just give you a little, give our audience a little bit of a bio of Leila. And I'm saying your name correctly, right, Leila?
Yes.
Cool. Leila is a mother, proud Chicana Latino woman, and passionate defender of Mother Earth, the Amazon, indigenous rights, and climate justice. Since 2015, she served as the executive director of Amazon Watch, the nonprofit, leading organization working to protect and defend the bioculture, climate integrity of the Amazon rainforest by advancing indigenous peoples' rights, territories, and solutions. The way we got connected is our Kiss the Ground's new COO also serves on the board of Amazon Watch, and he connected us, and he said extraordinary things about you. And I also have a sweet, deep relationship with Atosa, who I think is your predecessor and the founder of Amazon Watch. And we get to see each other here and there, and always have a very sweet, dear, heartfelt connection. So it's great to meet you. Welcome. Good morning. And what's that?
I just said good morning. Good morning from San Francisco Bay Area and Ohlone territory up here in the north part of California. I'm originally from Oceanside, Southern California, so I know it's much sunnier there now.
It is a beautiful day today here in Southern California. Well, wonderful. Thank you again for joining us. Our theme for the month of May on the We Can Do This podcast is honoring mothers. So I first just want to start by honoring you as a mother. In the most practical sense, and also honoring you as someone who really is protecting our Mother Earth. So thank you for that. And in the spirit of mothers, a way to kind of jump into your story and your background, I'd love to hear about who your mother was and how her life and how she raised you impacted and has you be the woman and the mother that you are today.
Oh, wow. Well, my mother is Rosalba Ignacia Salazar, Rivero Salazar. She may be listening. I shared the podcast announcement on Facebook, and she usually follows everything I do. So hi, Mom, if you're there. She's down there in Temecula. So I'm the daughter of Rosalba and the granddaughter of Concepcion Lynch. And as I mentioned, my mom lives down in Southern California. She's originally from Mexico, as is my father and all my ancestors before that. And I'm a daughter of an immigrant. I'm a daughter of immigrants, first generation immigrants who came to Southern California when they were young, when they were teenagers, actually, and came in the late 60s, early 70s, and were, obviously a very, very different time. My father was a laborer, worked every kind of job, construction and carpentry and mechanic and painter. And my mom worked in the public school system as a bilingual educator. and very hard workers, very family oriented. And the thing when I think about my mom and how she raised us, I think of her in the kitchen. And I think of me helping her in the kitchen, and think of, you know, my Beatles shirt that I would wear when I would make enchiladas. Because it was like, I would call it, you know, my enchilada shirt, because it was like, all right, we're going to make enchiladas. And it was like, I would grab that shirt, and because it had stains all over it. And it was just like my shirt that I would wear when I would cook with my mom. And I wore it a lot because my mom cooked a lot. And I'm obviously biased because I'm Mexican and I love Mexican food. And I think it just comes from my mom's really good cooking. And that's how we, you know, I think that was, you know, we have had a very humble household, hardworking, humble household. And I think that's really how she showed us, and how all of our family, our very, very big family, showed love, is by cooking and sharing food. Because that's one of the basic necessities of life, right? You need food, you need water, you need shelter, you need good health. And so I really remember my mom cooking a lot, and taking us to the beach a lot, because that was our free public outlet. And that, you know, I thank my mom for that, because while my dad was really, you know, out there working to support the family, my mom was the one who was with the kids a lot, and she took us to the beach a lot, and that began my love for nature, right? And really started my my activism, because when I was in high school, our beach in Oceanside was closed because of a medical waste spill. And that was my first moment when I realized, or just actually got angry at, you know, at, like, just could not believe that people would just dump waste into the ocean that, you know, not only people enjoyed, but animals lived in. So that was my wake up call as a 15, 16-year-old. And I'll just stop there.
Wow, beautiful. And as you are a mother to two daughters, right?
Yeah, you might see one of them come in here to ask me for something at one point.
Well, you I don't know if you know, but I mean, I'm sure you know at some point, but you have the Amazon, or you have some kind of rainforest backdrop. So I don't know if people, if someone comes into the room, they'll walk through the rainforest, or or it covers them
if
up.
they get really close, then you can really see them. If they're back there, you can't get past the rainforest view.
Beautiful. So two daughters, and their ages are?
They just turned 8 and 11. We just had 2 April COVID birthdays indoors. I don't think they'll ever forget that, you know. They had a lot of plans for what they wanted to do for their birthdays, slumber parties. Little one, the 8 one who turned 8, wanted to have a Super Ocho birthday party. Super Ocho is a Chilean candy. My husband's Chilean, and we had gone to Chile in February and part of March. So we brought back a bunch of Chilean candies, and she said, you know, since it's going to be my 8th birthday, Super Ocho, we're going to have a Super Ocho party, and everyone's going to dress up like superheroes, and I'm going to give them candies from Chile. So she was really excited about that. And I don't know if she or I was more disappointed that we couldn't do it, because she was very excited about it. But we rearranged everything, just like, you know, all of us are doing, and made her birthday really special with, you know, Zoom calls with her friends that dressed up in superhero or dress up outfits. And but, you know, I think it's been especially hard for her, because the older one at least has her Zoom calls, has a lot more homework. And the younger one has her Hers is a little bit more like, it's a little bit more flexible and, you know, reading, a lot of reading and morning activities, but in the afternoon, it's a little bit harder for her, which then, you know, makes it a little bit harder for me to balance because, you know, my work is not a 4-hour a day work. It's full on. You know, we thought, oh, you know, we're going to have so much more time, you know, because we're not going to be in all these meetings in person and we're not going to be traveling. But, you know, I think we've all kind of learned that we have just as much or even more work on all of the calls that we have. And so trying to, you know, still after 2 months, trying to learn how to balance it all. You know, taking care of family and virtual learning and giving the kids activities that are not on the computer because, you know, they need to be not on screens all day. And then getting our work done and taking care of ourselves. So, you know, I don't think this is new for anyone who is a mom or a parent. You know, it's a lot to balance. We're all learning and adapting as we go. Let's keep sharing, sharing ideas and resources because we all need it.
Yes, well, thank you. Well, beautiful. So, you touched on it a little bit with the toxic spill at 15, but I'd love to know how you became really dedicated and focused on protecting the Amazon and really connecting to the importance of preserving indigenous life and indigenous ways, and how that really, your pathway to becoming like, this is my path.
Mm-hmm. Interestingly, you know, sometimes people ask me, they're like, how did like a Chicana, Latina, you know, from, you know, San Diego, like, you know, dedicate her life to the Amazon and indigenous rights? And it's a long story. I'll try to keep it brief, but I mean, basically, it started with a slideshow at my high school. We had an Earth Day event at Oceanside High School, and we had a guest speaker who came and gave a slideshow about the rainforest. And I, you know, seeing pictures like this, like my background, beautiful rainforest pictures and amazing animals. And I was just like, one day I want to go there. And I went to school at UC Santa Barbara and to study environmental studies and political science. And, you know, I went there because of the ocean and because of the programs and the environmental studies department. In my second year of school, I had the opportunity to do an internship. And I said, I want to go to the rainforest. I don't care how many student loans I have to take out to go to the rainforest, but I'm going. I want to go. That's like what I've been dreaming of. So I went to volunteer at a rainforest reserve in the Ecuadorian Amazon. And, you know, I thought I was going to plant trees and learn about the plants, and I did. But what I, you know, after spending 3 months there the first time, I realized that, you know, you can't just learn this from a book, and you can't just learn this from a biologist. Or an ethnobotanist. The original ethnobotanists, biologists, conservationists, environmentalists are indigenous peoples. And I learned that from walking with, you know, with some of the indigenous people who lived and worked at the reserve, who would take us on all day walks. I mean, you couldn't go 5 feet without them saying, oh, this plant is for this. This plant is for women. This plant is for, you know, scrapes. This plant is for, you know, ear infections. This plant is for, and I was just, you know, I wanted to be an ethnobotanist then. I said, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like this, you're a library of information, and there's so much here. And then I saw the oil spills.
And just to dig into that a little bit. So there's this, they're walking you through this library of knowledge that are, instead of books, they're plants that have, and how were you understanding that they had understanding and communion, and, what was your, how did you understand their understanding of the plants? Did they share how they understood and knew each plant's kind of genius?
I mean, they would know, most of the time. Okay, I'm going to just specifically say Don Gabriel Tapuy. He's a Quechua man who was a son of a shaman. And so, I mean, he knew thousands of plants just off the top of his head. It wasn't written down. It was, I mean, you would walk on a path and he would, he would know every plant, and its property. And he wouldn't know the scientific names. He would know like the names Chiricaspi or, Guayusa or Sangre de Drago or Uña de Gato, the cat's claw. Some of you have heard some of these, a cat's claw. This is good for immune system. This is good for any female reproductive issue. Sangre de Drago is good for, this is what you use if you have a cut or a scrape or those mosquito bites that itch you. Let's get some Sangre de Drago and rub it on you and the itching will go away. He, it wouldn't just be that the plant is for that. He would take it, squeeze a mushroom, these drops are good for ear infections. He would show you, and or later on would take some, gather some, and then prepare it. And so it was just, that was the introduction. That was the introduction to that appreciation of.
This is at 16, this is at college. So
no, this was in college. I was 20.
20.
And so it was the introduction to that knowledge, and just that eye-opening, like, wow, you are the ones who have the knowledge. And then seeing, leaving, being there for a couple months. And then I said, okay, I'm going to plant trees. And I also want to learn about some of these plants. I want to help document some of these plants. So I did one of the initial documentations of some of the plants that were in the plant garden at Hatun Sacha Biological Station. But as I was mentioning, on the way out of Napo, the Napo region, and heading back to the capital city of Quito, you pass through a cloud forest, and you pass along on a road alongside the Papayacta River, which the Trans-Ecuadorian pipeline is parallel to the river. And there was a massive rupture of this oil pipeline, and the oil was just spilling into the river, and it was just gushing. And it's like there was no emergency crew, they came later, but there was nothing being done to stop like thousands of gallons and barrels of oil from spilling into the river, which is the main water source for the city of Quito. So that was just kind of my second kind of shocker moment, where the first one was a medical waste. The second one was an oil spill, and was like, this is not right. This is not okay. Like, who is responsible for this? Who did this? Who set this up? And once I started digging in, it's okay, it's the state oil company, it's the government, but who set this up for them? And found out that Chevron, Texaco, now Chevron, had set up the oil infrastructure for the country in the 1960s, and really set up the oil infrastructure on a policy of drill and dump. They didn't, there weren't any environmental, indigenous rights laws to protect the rainforest or the people at that time. So the government gave Texaco free rein to set up the oil infrastructure in a way that they knew was faulty, that they knew that was not industry standard. They would never have done that in the United States, and they did it there in the middle of the rainforest. And it caused major major devastation in the Ecuadorian Amazon. And so the oil spill that I saw was a result of faulty pipelines that were, had been installed, 30 years prior. Unfortunately, this is not the only oil spill that has happened. There are oil spills almost every day in the Ecuadorian Amazon. And there was just one recently, just a few weeks ago. There was a massive oil spill in the Ecuadorian Amazon, which left thousands of people, over 20,000 people without clean water in the midst of a COVID crisis. So this is, I could go on and on about that. That's a whole other issue, but really, going to the Amazon the first time and seeing that oil spill really made me not only want to do everything I can to protect the rainforest and defend Indigenous rights, but also hold these companies accountable. So like when we talk about corporate accountability, that was kind of in my early 20s, that was really my focus, was we have to hold these companies accountable. They cannot get away with what they did. Like these communities and the rainforest need justice. They need justice. And so I was on this path through college to just, learn more about the rainforest and visit as much as I could. I got involved with ecotourism. I would lead student groups to the reserve every summer. And said, always told myself one day, I want to start a campaign targeting Texaco, now Chevron. I want to do corporate accountability work. And Amazon Watch was founded in 1996. And when we opened an office here in 2002, I joined Amazon Watch to start the Chevron campaign, the Clean Up Ecuador campaign, and worked directly with the communities impacted by Texaco, now Chevron, for many, many years on their advocacy work, on their lawsuit. And then for a couple years, I went and worked at Rainforest Action Network to start up the agribusiness campaign in 2007. It was around the time of a new wave of agribusiness expansion in the Brazilian Amazon in particular, and then also palm oil expansion in Indonesia. So we started up an agribusiness campaign at Rainforest Action Network.
That brings up a question, which I think there's some confusion on in why the rainforest is being cut down, why we had all these fires recently. Some story is that it's all agro-business, but when I spoke to a Brazilian friend of mine who's pretty, I respect his opinion, he was saying that it's mostly illegal land grabbing by burning, putting a couple cows on it, then it essentially kind of gives them rights to that, and then they sell it to farmers who then start to produce beef or monocultures. And then he also said, in defense of farmers, is that in the Amazon basin or regions of the Amazon, farmers have to have like maybe X% of their land in rainforest and X% in cropland. So I just would love for you to speak to the clarity around that, because I know that's I have some confusion around that, and some people say it's all meat, or some people say it's oil, or some people say it's this kind of illegal land real estate play of stealing land. So please.
It's all of it. It's all of it, and yes, remember the Amazon basin. The largest tropical rainforest, the largest river, massive, forest, river, house for biodiversity on our planet. It covers 9 countries. It's, the basin is as large as the continental US. It's massive, massive. And there are many, many, many threats. In the Brazilian Amazon, which is the biggest, the number one cause of deforestation and degradation and destruction is cattle, the number one cause. But there's
Cattle.
so many things.
Yep.
Is agribusiness and, you know, cattle and soy and everything, because if, you know, simply said, it's cattle, because if you clear land to plant soy, you're planting that soy to feed cattle.
Mm-hmm.
You're not planting that soy for food for people, for the most part.
Yeah.
So the majority of the deforestation and degradation in Brazil is because of agribusiness expansion. It's because of cattle production, and yes, that's because of there's land grabbing that's incentivized by the government, that's incentivized by corporations, that's incentivized by financiers to go and convert land, whether it's, you know, forested primary rainforest or secondary rainforest or, you know, indigenous territories. There's an incentive to go and convert that land to produce cattle. But that's not the only cause. There's mining, there's illegal deforestation, there's mining, there's, you know, for many, many years we worked on mega dams, and those are some of the threats, particularly in Brazil. In the Western Amazon, so we're talking Ecuador and Peru and Colombia, the primary causes of deforestation and degradation and destruction in the Western Amazon is extraction, fossil fuel extraction, oil mining, and you know, we're talking about the most biodiverse part of the Amazon is the Western Amazon. Scientists say that it is the most biodiverse place on the planet, terrestrial ecosystem on the planet.
Can we put a little pin and just explore biodiversity? You know, in the realm of Kiss the Ground, we talk a lot about it, but I would love to just, from your perspective, why is biodiversity so essential for life on planet Earth? Like, what is, from your perspective, your understanding, what's the importance of biodiversity for us to get why it's essential to protect and essential for life?
Well, biodiversity is life. I mean, that's as simple as I could put it, right? You know, especially when you're in places like the rainforest, you know, it's not just, you know, one tree. It's thousands of trees. Just in 1 hectare of forest in the Amazon, you can have, you know, hundreds of different species of trees. In comparison to California, for example, in 1 hectare or 2.5 acres of land, you might find 6 species of trees. Mm. And while, you know, the redwood forest or an oak forest is magnificent, and we do everything we can to protect our natural areas, the biodiversity is so different in the Amazon, right? We protect both because all natural areas are important to protect, but the biodiversity in the Amazon is so vast. I told you.
Hello.
Hi. I got my mom a muffin.
Oh, you're a sweetheart.
They can't hear you, Mom, because I'm on the headphone. They just
she's
brought me
mothering you.
Yes.
She's mothering you. She's bringing you food.
She just brought me a gluten-free banana muffin. Thank you, Mama. And so, I mean, you know, I think of the Amazon as the cradle of life. You know, it's just so much biodiversity, so much life, and yeah, I mean, I think about the biodiversity crisis that we have. You know, when I think of biodiversity, I think of also the crisis that we're facing, that, you know, we're losing plant and animal species at an alarming rate. And at a extinction crisis level. And why is it important? Well, that's actually a hard question to answer from a personal perspective, because
the visualization that I was just seeing while you were expressing it is like, there's this hammock holding all of life, and there's all these interwoven threads holding the hammock together, and all threads are whole, and there's strength in that web of life. But we get down to just a few, of those threads, a monoculture or a loss of biodiversity, essentially life is no longer held. It falls. Yep. It falls down.
As our indigenous allies, remind us time and time again, the integral, when a rainforest is healthy, it has balance, it's in harmony, it's interconnected. When it's not, when those, they actually say, there's invisible lines. When those invisible lines or threads are broken, that's when there's imbalance. And so, the antithesis of balance, the antithesis of a healthy, thriving rainforest full of life is monoculture, are those vast, endless fields of soybean or corn crops in the middle of what used to be the most biodiverse savanna, tropical savanna. The Cerrado is the most biodiverse tropical savanna on the planet. It is right below the Amazon rainforest. They're connected. And so when you were talking about, there's actually laws in Brazil, forest codes that say, if you're in the Cerrado and you have land and you're a farmer, large scale farmer, 80% of your land must be used for agriculture and 20% used for protection. So you must protect 20% of original standing forests, and the rest can be used for agriculture. In the Amazon, it's the opposite, but with this new government, everything's kind of up for grabs, and it's really, 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 really threatened right now.
I can feel that there's beyond just a desire to protect land and nature, and it feels like there's a spiritual connection to the wisdom of indigenous people that's really touched your heart, and is speaking through you as the voice for them, here in the Western, more developed world. And I'm just wondering, what, in essence, what is the voice and the essence of that wisdom that's been impressed upon your heart, that now you're compelled to share with our world, that oftentimes is called what is it,
the Western world.
Yeah, but almost like termite culture of endless consumption.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, my question is, what's the essence of the wisdom that you've learned that is really you're bringing to the Western world back as a messenger, as a knowledge keeper, as a wisdom protector?
Well, thank you for that. I don't consider myself that way, but I definitely, I guess, I have a megaphone in a certain way, as a director of Amazon Watch, to get these messages out. Our mission is to, protect the Amazon and advance and uplift and amplify the solutions, the lives, the rights of indigenous peoples, because we believe that they are the best stewards, they're the best guardians, they're the best protectors of of the rainforest. And so, you know, spending over 20 years working with them throughout the Amazon, from Ecuador to Peru to Colombia to Brazil, you know, I'll speak for myself and say that, you know, listening to them and see how they, you know, are in how they walk in the forest, how they are in the world, what they're sharing with all of us is, and they can't always, you know, it's our job to make sure that they speak for themselves. And when there's opportunities for, you know, them to attend in-person shareholder meetings or, you know, UN climate meetings or biodiversity meetings, that they go and they speak for themselves. And we're the catalyst. We're the ally that helps catalyze those opportunities. And we're, you know, we stand shoulder to shoulder, side by side with them to make sure that they, you know, they are speaking for themselves. And that said, you know, there is definitely, you know, after so many years of, you know, being with and hearing from and walking with, you know, there's definitely certain people that, you know, you remember in these times. And I think of, you know, people like Berito Cubaria, who was the first UA man elder and spiritual leader who came to Los Angeles for the UA people of Colombia. He came because the UA people were threatened by Occidental Petroleum based in Los Angeles. And he came in to warn the company that if they continued with their oil drilling plans, that the UA people would never allow it, and they would never accept it. And they would actually, they actually threatened to commit mass suicide if this company went through with their plans. And, you know, I remember seeing that article in the Los Angeles Times and being so alarmed by it. And what Berito said at the time was, you know, you cannot take the blood of Mother Earth. And he was saying this in 1996. This is one of the reasons why Amazon Watch began, is because of what Berito said and what he came to do. And he basically said to the world, you know, no, we will never allow you to take the blood of Mother Earth. And seeing, you know, oil, we're talking about oil as, you know, the liquid that runs through the veins of Mother Earth, that if you take that out, you are creating imbalance in the world. And, you know, look at what's happened with, so he was saying this way before we were saying, keep it in the ground.
Yeah.
Way before. Now, you know, we all say, keep it in the ground. Fossil fuels have to remain in the ground. We have the scientific evidence that 80% of fossil fuels or more need to stay in the ground to avert further climate chaos. We have an economic situation right now that shows the oil prices down. Not, you know, they're not good investments right now. Right now is the time to say, this is not a good investment. We have to go another way. We have to transition to another form of energy. This is not the time, especially in a time of climate crisis and a time of COVID crisis. This is not the time to be making plans to continue drilling for oil. If it's not, you know, if the climate, biodiversity, and COVID pandemic aren't enough, I mean, look at the oil spills that have happened. Look at the price of oil. It's just not economically feasible anymore. And so that's why, you know, thinking back and thinking of, you know, Berito said this to us, you know, don't take the blood of Mother Earth. You know, the scientists and all of our activist advocacy organizations, climate justice organizations are saying, keep it in the ground. This is like the perfect time to be saying that. But again, the governments and the companies are not listening. Right before this call, I was on the People's Assembly on Black Rock.
Yeah, I want to
And,
talk about that. Yeah.
and you know, it was just amazing to hear, you know, there's people from all over the world talking about BlackRock. This is, you know, for those of you who don't know, BlackRock is the biggest investor in climate destruction in the world. This is an asset manager based in New York. Most people wouldn't know their name. A few years ago, no one knew who they were. But communities and advocacy organizations all across the world have joined together on a campaign called BlackRock's Big Problem to basically out this company and say, you know, you are invested in everything that's destroying our climate. You're the biggest investor in fossil fuels. And in the Amazon, they have over $2.5 billion invested in oil companies that are destroying the Amazon or threatening indigenous peoples without their consent. They are one of the biggest companies, the biggest financial investors in agribusiness companies like JBS, the biggest meat producer, Marfrig, ADM, Bunge. They're invested in these companies which are promoting the expansion of agribusiness in the Amazon and Brazil. And by promoting the expansion of agribusiness in Brazil, they're promoting illegal logging. They're promoting land grabbing. They're promoting the threatening and the attacks on indigenous peoples. And they're laying the tinder for more fires to happen in the Amazon. That's exactly what happened last year. The deforestation was higher than it had ever been in recent years. And that's what caused the fires last year. And we're in a situation now where deforestation has doubled as of last year. And
wait, you're saying deforestation of the Amazon has doubled this year from last year?
Yep. So if we think the fires last year were bad, we're in a situation where we cannot be surprised if fires start again. They will, because it's gotten worse. The deforestation, when you deforest all that land and all that, tinder is there. It's like ready to spark.
Yeah, you're basically eliminating the water holding capacity of the canopy.
Yeah.
So you're just laying, driftwood on the ground.
Exactly. So there is a, the Amazon has been in an emergency state since last August. And with the fires, and now with COVID, there is a state of emergency with COVID right now.
We're all bewildered by this experience, I would say. But because everybody's kind of in their own bubble of their own bewilderment and, what it means to them, I imagine that there's not an awareness of what is. So I'd love to know what is the impact of COVID on indigenous people and on the Amazon right now. I know I got an email from one of my board members, and I was in touch with Giselle Bundchen, who I know is a big advocate of the rainforest, and she said she's working with some people around supporting. But I'd love to give our audience some context of what is. This morning I was thinking about it, and it made me think about when the Spaniards came to America and essentially brought infectious disease of domesticated animals, and that demise of a whole, a continent. And I'm just, tell me a little bit about what is, I don't know anything about what is happening with COVID-19 in the Amazon.
Yeah, well, the COVID-19 in the Amazon has created a major state of emergency across the Amazon. Yes, as you mentioned, it's been over 500 years of colonization across the Americas. And in the first, with the first colonization, over half of the indigenous population of the Americas were wiped out by gunfire and disease. And so when we first, went into shelter in place, the first thing we thought of was, okay, like, if this spreads to, the communities, the indigenous people, this could be devastating because of, the historical negligence of governments to, address the needs of indigenous peoples. And also their, vulnerable health due to hundreds of years of this colonization, but then also, their lack of adequate health services, and also their, I'm distracted by Kitty now. Okay, Mama.
It's a kitty.
And then also, there are indigenous peoples in voluntary isolation. There are still uncontacted peoples in the Amazon, in Ecuador, in Brazil, in Peru. There are still uncontacted peoples who have chosen to not be in contact with the dominant societies. And these are the people that are the most at risk of COVID reaching their very, very remote communities. I mean, evangelical missionaries in late March said, we should go contact them now because we want to help prevent them from contracting this virus. I mean, nothing could be far from the truth or what needs to happen. Unfortunately,
if they're not in contact, shouldn't they be fine, right?
Left alone. Left alone. That they've chosen to be, free from contact and living in, the forest. They will be fine and free from this virus. So, in late March, early April, the focus was there weren't cases of indigenous peoples in the Amazon. So the focus was really prevention, communication, prevention, taking precautions, just like all of us were. We were all, in late March trying to figure out, what do we do? Wash your hands a million times, don't touch your face, wear a mask, stay home. All the things that we were doing also had to be communicated to indigenous peoples in towns, in communities, in remote villages. So that was really the first focus. And that wasn't done by governments. It was done by indigenous peoples themselves and with support of ally organizations like ourselves. And, it's for immediate support for, prevention and communications. But then also as people started sheltering in place, there are indigenous peoples who live in towns weren't able to go to their villages or, were afraid to go to their villages because I said, well, if we go to the villages, maybe we can spread the virus to our people. So what do they do if they're in the middle of a town and everything's shut down? They need food. They have to have their basic needs met. So unfortunately, there are thousands of cases of COVID-19 throughout the Amazon. I mean, throughout the Amazon, there are, over 50,000 cases of COVID-19 across the Amazon.
And just because I know lots of people get it, but as far as, is it affecting people, because some people get it and they're asymptomatic and some people get it and it's massively impactful to health. How are people responding as far as people's immune system? How is, for the most part, as far as the amount of people that are getting into critical condition or
it's a state of emergency. I mean, across the Amazon, there are over 60,000 cases. There are over 4,000 people who have died across the Amazon. Indigenous peoples, there are over 34 nationalities, ethnic groups that are affected. There's over 100 Indigenous people who have died, and the virus is spreading. I mean, I just received a very sad note this morning from one of our allies in Peru, a Shipibo leader, that his mother died last night of COVID-19. The Shipibo people in Peru have been hit very hard. The Sequoia people in Ecuador. We just heard of the first Waurani case in Ecuador, an elder dying. And that's, that's very worrisome, that the threats to the elders, because as we were mentioning before, they're the wisdom keepers. They're also, in many cases, the healers, the shamanes, right? And so one of the first messages that needed to go out to the people was, if you feel sick, don't go to the shaman. Don't go to the elders, because then you can infect them.
Yeah.
So it's been early, late March, early April, we were fearing the worst, and it's getting worse. And so, what can we do about this?
Yeah, that was actually
what can we do about this?
Question just came up from the audiences. How can people support? What can we do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, immediately, at the beginning, everyone's trying to just figure out what to do, how to protect themselves. Immediately, the indigenous nationalities and federations and organizations started putting out declarations of concern, of solidarity. They said, we're going to take matters into our own hands. We're closing off our borders, just like, indigenous peoples have done here in the United States. In case you don't know, the Navajo Nation has been very negatively affected. After New York and New Jersey, the Navajo Nation is the third largest hit in the United States. Many indigenous peoples across—
Third largest in what way? Like
in number of cases.
Number of cases in their region, or on?
No, in the U.S.
Just in the U.S.
The Navajo Nation has been hit very, very hard. And, one of the things that indigenous peoples are calling for, from North America to South America is, a moratorium on extraction. Stop business as usual on indigenous territories while this is happening. We've been calling for moratoriums for decades.
Yeah.
But this is, if there's no other clear way time to say it, it's now. To say, this is not the time to be drilling for oil, expanding mining operations, expanding agribusiness operations in the Amazon. So in support and in solidarity of indigenous peoples, Amazon Watch led an effort to get a declaration of a declaration for a moratorium on any expansion, any industrial activity in indigenous lands. And so we got over 225 organizations around the world to sign on to this, and we're using it to pressure governments and corporations. So we're continuing our advocacy, but then we also have to respond to the urgent needs, and the needs are endless. We have partners contacting us every day saying, we need food, we need medical care, we need transportation to be able to get food to these remote villages. And we need to do that in an effective and safe way. So at Amazon Watch, we have an Amazon Defenders Fund that you can donate to, where the funds for the Amazon Defenders Fund go directly to rapid response grants to partners all across the Amazon. And while we are doing everything that we can to, respond to the needs of the many, many requests of partners, Amazon Watch cannot do this alone.
No.
We are one organization, and there is a massive rainforest and thousands of people that need support. So what we have done in collaboration with NGO allies and donors and indigenous peoples and leaders throughout the Amazon, we have formed a collaboration to launch an Amazon emergency fund.
Mm.
So two very specific things you can do. You can go to amazonwatch.org and you can take action. I could share some links in the chat here. Take action at our website. You know, there's a little button that says take action. There's a little button that says donate. And you can donate to the Amazon Defenders Fund.
You can just put it in the chat.
Great. And you could take action. You could also go to the Amazon emergencyfund.org and all of the donations for the Amazon Emergency Fund are going into a fund that's being fiscally sponsored by Rainforest Foundation, our NGO ally there. And we are collaborating NGOs, Indigenous peoples, and donors to raise $3 million in the next week.
Mm.
We launched it a few weeks ago, but our goal is to raise $3 million by the end of next week to deploy the urgent support that's needed right now in the Amazon. I'll just give a plug that in a week on May 28th, we're doing a benefit event for the Amazon Emergency Fund. There's a group of artists, influencers, celebrities, directors, and NGO allies who have formed a collaboration called Artists for Amazonia. So you can go to Artists for Amazonia, and we are together hosting an amazing benefit event next Thursday at 5 o'clock. And I know that you are full of webinars and calls, but you do not want to miss this. We have a star-studded lineup of amazing artists who are going to be performing and sharing their messages of solidarity for Indigenous peoples, and Indigenous leaders are going to be on the webinar, on the event, and you don't want to miss it next Thursday at 5 o'clock. So you can check Amazon Watch or Artists for Amazonia for more information there.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you.
I know that was a lot.
It was a lot, and yeah, I'm present to that. Yeah, I'm just present to that. We can't change unless we hit a rock bottom. And just you know, I'm moved by you know, how difficult things are in so many places, and yeah, what, you know, this podcast, Kiss the Ground, we really are an organization standing for that we can do this. And I saw a photo on your Instagram with you and Dolores Huerta and Si Se Pueda. And I just, you know, the last question that we always ask our guests is, how can we do this? Our mission is we can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question to you is how can we do this? And just from your heart speaking, how we can heal, rectify, regenerate, and go in the direction that we need to go. So
yeah. Well, I think we have to, you know, it's very, you know, with the crisis in front of us, you know, our first kind of reaction, I'll speak for myself as an activist, and my first feeling is we got to do everything we can, right? We got to work and do everything that we can. Hold on a second, Mama. But we also, we also have to take care of ourselves. You know, I admit, you know, there's been days where I sit in my chair for hours without getting up, and I'm just looking at the computer and going, and I have to, you know, pay attention to those little interruptions of my daughters, or, you know, I gotta go eat, I gotta, you know, end early so I could do yoga, you know, and, you know, thank you to those, you know, websites that are giving us free yoga, free live yoga, and you know, those dance classes for our kids, and, you know, that we need to, you know, take care of ourselves, feed ourselves. Those of us who are fortunate to be able to do those things. I want to just acknowledge that not everyone can do those things. But, you know, I think we need to, you know, first and foremost, we need to make sure we stay healthy. And we have to do everything we can, of course, to respond, but we have to take care of ourselves and our family and our spirit. And so whatever, you know, you can do to help keep your spirit alive and your hope alive, that's what's going to get us through, is hope, that we can change this, that we can do this, because we can, you know, if, like Dolores Huerta says, si se puede. And I think of, you know, our people. My grandfather also came here and worked in the field in Delano, you know, and, you know, remember your ancestors, remember. It makes me emotional to think about, but, you know, remember what they went through.
Their sacrifice.
You know, they, you know, and I see that a lot of Native people and immigrants saying, you know, like, our ancestors got through this, that we are resilient and we will survive this. But we don't want to only survive, we want to thrive. We want the change that we need in this world to happen. And we're the ones that are going to make it happen. And we have to do it in a united way, you know. So as I was saying earlier, that, you know, this is not the time to do it in a silo. This is the time for us to come together. And, you know, that's why we did this emergency fund the way that we did, and said, you know, this is, you know, we all have the things that we're working on, but right now we have to work together to make the change that we need in the world.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. I just want to, we're at our closing time, and typically we call for people to support people who love and appreciate the work that Kiss the Ground's doing, to join our membership. But I want to just say, anyone who's listening who was going to contribute to Kiss the Ground, I want to divert that contribution to the Amazon Emergency Fund, and really allow for that which is right in front of us to allow us to take action. And, you know, I was feeling this morning overwhelmed, overburdened with all that I need to do, manage. And the thing that actually got me out of my mire was just actually taking 3 or 4 actions to contribute to other people's lives, other people's well-being, other people, my son, my best friend, sending a note of gratitude to my previous executive director of Kiss the Ground, acknowledging her and her efforts, that, you know, that her work that I'm standing on the shoulders of. And we can do this, but it will only be together. And so I just really want to praise and attribute and share my huge gratitude for you picking this service and this dedication to the Amazon and to climate justice and to Indigenous peoples. And just with like the nod of my heart, thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your time and attention and energy. And really, I know that, you know, as an executive director of a nonprofit and all that we have to manage, I just want to know that you're not alone, and that we're in this together. And I really appreciate you.
Thank you. I look forward to meeting you one day in person. We have so much to look forward to after all of this. So I look forward to meeting you, and I want to thank you for all the work you all are doing and hosting, and thank Richard for introducing us as well. So hopefully we'll all just continue to be in touch and work together.
Yes, today was beautiful, informative, inspiring, and thank you for your time. And just to share that every week we have a live conversation on Wednesdays, and next week we have Marianne Williamson is going to be another powerful mother, woman, all things protecting and fighting for good and for love. We just give thanks for all the amazing people doing the good work. And we thank you for your attention and listening and learning today. And we'll get through this together. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Signing off. Appreciate you.